here by Chad Madden and Carl Mattiola. Um, Chad is these are the co-founders of Breakthrough. Chad is also the founder of Madden Physical Therapy in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Sorry, Chad, letting your secret out. In the last 5 years, Chad has quadrupled the value of his practice using strategies like what we're going to be talking through today and what we use with our customers at Breakthrough. And Carl is the former head of online sales for Tesla, where he helped them grow from 600,000 a week to over 60 million a week in online sales. And in 2013, he took that experience and applied it to Breakthrough, where he helped co-found it with Chad. And here at Breakthrough, we help hundreds of private practices get more patients and increase revenue. So thank you for joining us today, and I will let you take it from here, Chad.
Great. Thank you, Andrea.
Thanks.
Awesome. For everybody that has just hopped on, if you can share your first name and or full name in the chat, and also where you're calling in from, that would be great. Awesome. So we'll get started here. So what we're going to talk about over the course of our time together here is how you can build a monopoly, and we're specifically going to talk about how you can take advantage of a niche with neuropathy, which is a giant opportunity, and we'll talk about specifically why that is. So in our time together here, we are going to quickly look at the market opportunity. We'll do an overview and benefits. We're going to talk about how to capture the demand, right? There's a right and wrong way to do it. And just because there's a huge opportunity, we have to use the right strategy and tactics when we're going in, the right system, if we're going to look to convert people over and ultimately bring them into our practice to consume our services and the products that we're offering. And then we're also going to talk about what we see as best practices in terms of treating patients. We're not going to tell you exactly what to do in terms of the treatment. So if you're a physical therapist, a chiropractor, if you're a podiatrist, if you're in functional medicine, we're not going to share that, but we're going to share the best practices of what we see those clinicians doing that is working in the marketplace. And then we will have time for Q&A here at the end. So a quick overview of neuropathy. Right now there's 330 million some odd people in the US. Approximately 1 in 10, so 33 million people have some sort of neuropathy or neuropathic pain. Diabetes is the leading cause, although there are other causes. The most common treatments, unfortunately, is pharmaceuticals, and it's often insufficient for treating the pain and also preventing the disease that causes neuropathy from advancing. And that's where you and I come in terms of the opportunity. So there are various studies. The 2019 one here in current treatment options in neurology. It shows that manual adjustments or manual therapy, massage, acupuncture, laser treatments, other conservative care options can help treat neuropathy. So again, giant opportunity, millions of people suffering. Many of them are going down the path of medications which are proving to be insufficient at helping treat the cause of their problem, and the services that you and I offer in conservative care do help them. So that's why we're taking a look at this now. So there's going to be a poll popping up here. I know many of you answer this in the email, but how often do you currently treat neuropathy patients? Are you seeing them frequently, where every day on your caseload you have neuropathy patients on there, sometimes, rarely, or never? If you can just click, that would be very helpful as we go through here.
And while, oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Chad. I didn't know that slide was next.
Okay. So the other thing that it does in terms of, practice benefit, there's a very high demand for solutions that provide relief. So people that are suffering with neuropathy, usually they have many other comorbidities. So they're not just suffering with neuropathy, especially if it's diabetic of diabetic origin. They also have other issues going on. They have issues with their hips, their back, their spine, other orthopedic problems as well, and that's where you can come in. So there's very high demand. They're consuming a lot of conservative care options already traditionally, and that's where you can step in and serve them. There's more revenue per patient potential than what we traditionally see. I know for us, when we see somebody with neuropathy coming through, we're in the thousands of dollars per plan of care. And you're going to see some examples here where people are upwards of $8,000, $10,000 per plan of care. Where when we see somebody with like a BPPV, for example, a vestibular issue, it's around $400 per plan of care. So there not only is higher demand, but there's higher income potential. For some, depending on the type of clinician you are, there's less hands-on treatment, less high-end manual labor involved in terms of manipulation or adjustments or manual therapy, whatever it is that you're providing. There's an opportunity to make a big impact in your community. Again, it's 1 in 10 Americans have some sort of neuropathy or neuropathic pain. And it's also differentiated. When we talk about spine pain, such as back pain, especially, there are, at least in my area that I see and the other markets that we work in, it's bloody waters when we're talking about back pain or common orthopedic problems, right? When we talk about neuropathy, it's more of a blue ocean, right? There's less competition. We can create a niche in something that is actually a huge niche, but it's just the competition isn't there as it is for back pain.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that really quick. It's a huge opportunity. I mean, there's a ton of patients out there who are suffering, and there are these types of solutions that people like you provide, practices like you can provide, are not known by the patients in the main medical system. So what that translates into as well is a huge business benefit for the practice. And so what we're seeing when it comes to marketing for neuropathy is it really stands out. It can be a great wedge against competition, and it's outperforming most of the other things that we're advertising for. So it's a really great way to grow your practice as well as help a ton of people.
So, especially for those of you that are brand new to any training that we've offered here at Breakthrough, just a quick word on who we are and why we can talk about this. As Andrea had already mentioned, I'm a private practice owner. Presently, to date, in the history of Breakthrough, we've worked with over 1,500 practices, primarily helping them market direct to the consumer. There's some other stuff on the screen there. The other big thing that you need to know is this: really our mission and our purpose is to help people in pain get back to normal naturally. So, and that includes those suffering with neuropathy. And the best way for us to do that is by working with owners like yourself. So what we've primarily helped owners do, 1,500 plus owners, is market their services direct to the consumer, because you and I weren't trained how to do that when we were going through our college and training and earning our degree. So the next thing that we want to think about here is how can we differentiate our practice and grow revenue through attracting neuropathy patients? Well, it starts with marketing. And the thing that we talk about the most is market message media match. When Carl and I met 10 years ago or so, he was in the process of interviewing over 300 private practice physical therapy owners all over the country. And the one struggle that we were really having at the time was how to market. By the way, it's not exclusive to PT. As we've talked with podiatrists, functional medicine practitioners, chiropractors, et cetera, it's a very common problem within healthcare. So let's start with the basics. The very first thing that we want to do is we want to align when we are marketing direct to the consumer and we're marketing a specific service, in this case, that of neuropathy treatment, we want to first decide who our target market is. And that is, we also call that our avatar. So who is it that we want to come into the clinic? I can tell you what normally gets in the way with most clinicians is this belief that, well, if I only advertise for neuropathy, or once I advertise for neuropathy, then I'm going to lose patients with other conditions. And that is not the case, right? So if you think about any business, how they grew and how they started targeting one very specific market, and going after one person. So in the case of neuropathy, I saw, Justin, majority of your patients are neuropathy. So what you would do, Justin, is you would go through and you would say, okay, who are the last 5 or 10 patients that I treated that I really want to work with in the future? And you want to think about what they have in common. So for us, in my practice, our avatar, our ideal patient, is a family-oriented female who's between the ages of 45 and 64. Why? Because she's the #1 consumer in the world, 49-year-old high school educated, 53-year-old college educated. She schedules 70% of all medical appointments in the country. So that's why we've chosen that as our avatar. But you want to do that same exercise here. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you write it down right now, that after this, you're going to go through and write down who is your target market. The next thing that you have to do is you have to think about your messaging. And the way that most of us do it as clinicians, especially when we're in a do-it-yourself role, is we write what we wanted to hear or what we wanted to produce when we were back in college, when we were talking, student physician or student clinician to other student clinician, right? So we used clinical language, that verbatim, and that kind of clinical speak, right? That doesn't work when we're marketing to a lay public. So we want to speak the language of our ideal target market, our avatar here. And it's very lay language. Think about talking about neuropathy on a 5th grade reading level, right? So when you're marketing, you're not going to try to give somebody a doctorate in neuropathy in the course of your, 300 word ad or something like that. You want to use their message, very simple language. And the easiest way to do that is to talk with the avatar, to identify the language, how they talk about neuropathy, what they're suffering from, and what they're looking for in a solution. And then finally, once we've identified our target market and once we've crafted messaging that matches how our target market talks about their problem and solution, then we want to choose media. And when we select media, we want to select media that the target market consumes. So if we're targeting, for example, 16-year-old baseball pitchers, I wouldn't be using direct mail because they're not reading what comes through the snail mail, right? The United States Postal Service. They're on online platforms, and we would want to target them there. When we're targeting that 45 to 64-year-old family-oriented female, we want to use the same media that she's using. In our case, for the last several years now, it's been Facebook, right? She's on Facebook. She's looking at pictures of her kids, her friends' children, as they're graduating high school, as they're going off to college, as they're graduating college, as they're building their family, growing their family. That's what she's looking at, right? So we want to use that media in the same way that she uses it. And the only time your marketing is ever going to work when you're going direct to the consumer is when you align these 3 variables: market, message, and media. Any comments on that, Carl?
No, I'll let you keep going. I think you're on a roll here.
Great. So the next thing that we want to think about, and this is new, we just started sharing this, but I went back and reread a book that I had read years ago. It's from the 1960s, but it's Eugene Schwartz, and the book is called Breakthrough Advertising. No relation to breakthrough, right? But nonetheless, in that text, Eugene Schwartz lays out 5 levels of awareness. And for most people, Charles just said, great book. I agree, Charles. So for most of us within healthcare, when we're marketing direct to the consumer, what most of us are doing is going after the very aware. So that's number 5 there. So they're saying, I know you, I love you, and I want to buy. They've likely been through for consuming your services in the past. They've received treatment from you. And for that person, all we have to do is give an offer, right? A direct offer, we offer them a free screen or some sort of simple promotion, direct to appointment, and they consume that offer, right? Here's the package. If you want the package, and this is the offer, and they come in, right? And what Eugene Schwartz says in that book is, he said that this is the lowest level, the lowest competency in all of advertising and marketing. And when we look at what's going on in healthcare right now, 99% of the options that are available in marketing are targeting number 5 here, right? So that's great. It should be part of your program. We do it here at Breakthrough. However, what we're doing when we only do that is we're missing out on the rest of the awareness scale. And really where the greatest opportunity is, where almost nobody plays, is in 1, 2, and 3, right? So the unaware, the problem aware, and the solution aware. And if you've ever thought, so whether you're in functional medicine, whether you're a chiropractor, a podiatrist, a physical therapist, and you've ever thought, I just wish more people knew about my services, you're talking specifically about 1, 2, and 3 there. And there's a different way, there's a different approach that we have to use for each of those levels of awareness. And again, the greatest arbitrage, the greatest opportunity is in 1, 2, and 3, because that's where nobody else is playing. So another thing that we want to keep in mind here is when we go direct to the consumer, we want to lead with patient education in your advertising. And I can remember years ago, 11, 12 years ago, when I started just sharing simple exercises, a lot of friends who had my best interest in mind, apparently, they said, why would you want to give away basically what's your livelihood? And it worked tremendously well, because we built huge amounts of goodwill within our community, within our avatar, our ideal customer, and we were just delivering, again, very high levels of goodwill through patient education. So we were talking about problems like SI joint pain, imbalance and dizziness issues, and urinary incontinence and lymphedema, and all these problems that we were seeing and helping with in the clinic, and we were sharing valuable information. It's, for most of us, if you're struggling that right now, we just need to adjust with the times, because information's available everywhere. It might as well be valuable and come from you. So it targets the 90% versus the 10%. Remember that 10% is offer only. 90% is we have to lead with something different than an offer. And the best thing to use there through testing is education, valuable goodwill. It builds ACE, right? Authority, celebrity, and expertise. As Andrea specifically pointed out in the beginning of this, I'm in central Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, not the destination capital of the world. But when we applied this, when we started delivering goodwill through our media outlets, we had people flying in from, oddly, Idaho, California, Canada, driving down from New York City, driving up from Baltimore, out from Pittsburgh, et cetera, to see us for a treatment. And I mean, really, I'm not anything special as a clinician or anything, we're not that unique within the marketplace, but we were delivering huge amounts of goodwill. You don't need the entire country flying in to see you. You just need to establish this ACE, this authority, celebrity, expertise in your radius of influence around the clinic that you have. The other thing to think about is educated leads. They're easier to convert, and they make better paying patients who are more likely to complete their plan of care, respect you for that plan of care and the treatment that you're providing, and refer other people to you. So the example here always that we talk about is, exam room A and exam room B. And you go into exam room A, and it's Carl, and you say, hey, Carl, what brings you in today? And he says, I have numbness and tingling in my feet. And okay, how'd you get here? And he said, well, my doctor told me that I should come see you, right? So that's exam room A. Hold that thought for a second. We go into exam room B, and it's Andrea. We say, okay, Andrea, what brings you in today? And she said, same exact thing that Carl said, pain, numbness, tingling in my feet. Okay, how did you end up here? And she says, well, I saw one of your videos online I then downloaded your book or purchased your book and I read that. And then I came to the lecture, the seminar that you had last week, and I heard you speak, and I want to be treated by you. Now, all things being equal, and you can go to the chat for this, who would you rather see? Both have the same problem. Carl has neuropathy, Andrea has neuropathy, right? But Andrea has consumed a lot of your content. Who would you rather treat? Exam room A, exam room B. You can put your answer in the chat. And yeah, the other thing to consider for neuropathy, thank you, Connie. Connie says B. I agree. Neuropathy patients they're often highly educated. They have tried other things, and some of those things have failed. They'll frequently say, "I've tried everything," because they've been run around quite a bit. But yeah, and then over here on the right, you can see an example of an ad that we're running right now for another practice, specifically focusing on patient education.
Right. And what I also wanted to share is on your previous slide, you talked about the different levels of awareness. What we're finding that works best for neuropathy is ads like this that focus. We find problem that most are just problem aware. They're definitely not aware of the solution that you guys can provide yet, for the most part. And when we put ads up that speak to the problem and the symptoms they're experiencing, these are what's working the best. And when we can educate them about that and talk to them about what natural treatment can look like, that's what really works here.
Great. So how can we get the greatest return here and effectively convert neuropathy leads into paying patients?
Cool. So I'm going to take this one. When we're talking about marketing our practice in general, we break it down into two different things: attracting patients and converting patients. In this case, we just talked about attracting patients, and we're focused on leading with patient education. In this case, for neuropathy, we're focusing on content that is educating them, that's demonstrating, and talking to their problem, not to the solution yet, right? But what I've found and what we found at Breakthrough in general is that when it comes to marketing your practice, really it's kind of like an iceberg, and attract is just the tip of the iceberg. The hardest part is conversion, because you can often generate a lot of interest, but getting patients converted, and especially getting them converted for the maximum value of the practice and the maximum value for the patient as well, it's very complex, and you can burn and waste a lot of money in advertising if you don't have all of the processes in place in order to maximize conversion. So that's what we're going to talk about here. So when you think about how someone ends up a paying patient in general, they go through these 6 steps, or these are at least the steps we take them through. Usually there's someone who's in need, someone who's in pain out there, or someone who's experiencing some sort of condition or symptoms. They click on that ad where it talks to how they might be able to solve those conditions or learn more about that. And step number 3, which should be happening and often is not, is someone in the practice reaches out to that person after they respond to the ad, and has a conversation and talks to them about what's going on for them. And the purpose of that conversation is, 1, to really create a connection with that patient, and 2, to get them to show up so that they'll convert to their assessment or to the workshop or whatever conversion vehicle you're using. Now, what we've found works best for neuropathy patients is in-person workshops. So we're mostly promoting in-person workshops where people can come in and learn more about how they can solve their pain, their neuropathy pain naturally. And that's another conversion step that needs to be maximized. So at the workshop, the things that are said and the way that the workshop finishes and the close is going to, you're usually going to be presenting an assessment that they can sign up for, or have some sort of screen or first appointment first day, and that'll take place in step 5. Now, when you're doing step 5, there's another conversion that takes place, and this is when you're selling them on an entire care plan, right? And you're enrolling them into that membership. So it's really important to have the right things happen at every single step all the way through in order to get this right. What we found at Breakthrough is the majority of practices out there, the biggest mistake they're making is at step 3. There's not either they don't have systems in place in order to convert patients, or let's just say a lead, or someone who responds to an ad, someone who raises their hand and sees your advertising. Either they don't have a system in place, they're not reaching out at all, or when they're reaching out, they're not following best practices to have the best conversation with that patient in order to get them to convert. But the same thing is true for every step throughout, and it's important that you have that figured out. You can click to the next. So what's a conversion mechanism? This is how we do it at Breakthrough, and what we found works at Breakthrough. So you can see there's a real ad, the same ad that we showed you before for neuropathy. They'll click on that. They'll go to a landing page where they can, learn more about a workshop that's going to take place. There's a video there, and it shows them what's going to happen at this workshop, where they can learn and build their education and learn more about how they can solve their pain naturally. And there they have the ability to click and enter their information. After they enter the information, hopefully they're receiving a phone call, as I mentioned, and having some conversation. They'll also get automated messages from our systems, and then we'll run a workshop. We find workshops work really, really well for this purpose. When it comes to creating a package that works, so we talked about, converting patients. We have a number of partners we're working with, and it's really cool. We're working with many practices now who are treating neuropathy, and we're learning a lot. And what we try to do at Breakthrough is put together different options in terms of what's out there, and put it in front of the practices we work with, so you can pick and choose what works best for you and what works best for the patients. And it's created a really cool environment where we're able to identify new devices that are really helping, talk about how they're helping, and also identify other forms of treatment and things out there that are helping. And in addition to that, we also talk about how to package this so that it can maximize the profitability for the practice as well, so that we can continue doing this and help more people. So we'll talk about that next here. So within the package, what we're finding is working is sort of a 3-pronged approach. Usually everybody on here has some sort of specialty. You could be a chiropractor, a podiatrist, you could be in physical therapy or in functional medicine. Regardless of what those are, we're at Breakthrough, we don't tell you how to treat patients, but we know most of you, based on the responses, are treating some patients with neuropathy, and we know that you probably have something in place there. We just kind of allow our clients to network with each other to talk about this. And that's just one part of the package. That could be, a cash portion that the customer pays for, that the patient pays for, or in some cases it's covered by insurance. And then there's 2 other things that we've noticed that are working really, really well. There's some devices, in particular, we're partnering with, and our practices we're seeing use successfully to treat neuropathy patients. We're using the device, a NeuFit, or a Newbie, which is providing some really, really great results. Anodyne, which is one of the best known, I think, in the space for neuropathy, which is a device that the patient can purchase and take home with them. And Lightforce laser is a class 4 laser that works great for other things as well, but is working well for neuropathy. So that's another portion that can really help improve the patient care as well as the profitability for the practice, because this is usually sold as a cash add-on service. And then the last one, which is probably the most differentiated and unique, we're partnering with a new company called the Total Neuropathy Solution that provides lifestyle and nutrition program along with a health coach that's white labeled and can be white labeled for your practice to help the patient solve the core issue, the root of the problem, especially if they're, if it's diabetic neuropathy, to help correct and help solve the lifestyle and nutrition components there. And so what we do at Breakthrough is really provide an environment to, drive patients in, attract and help convert, and provide an environment to choose and pick and choose from partners and talk about how you might be able to present this to the patient in the most optimal way to convert them. When it comes to patient conversion, these are really the three of the most important things that you need to be thinking about when it comes to marketing automation. And that's really, you want to be focused on using behavioral based campaigns that treat people differently based on how they're responding to the campaigns. You should ideally be leveraging best practices or things that are pre-written. So you're not emailing people one off at a time, and you're able to save a lot of time that way. And you're able to send a lot of goodwill to them. So answering questions they might have, asking them questions to spur a dialogue through automation. And then what you need to be doing, if you're doing this, is A/B split testing these over time, which means you're testing one type of message against another type of message and picking the one that works better. And so this is just an idea of some of the things that we do with our clients that I would recommend you do as well, is definitely be leveraging marketing automation to get more hands raised.
Yep. So this is a practice owner that I know personally, Dan Neff, who's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Dan, so the team here at Breakthrough started running advertising, everything that Carl just talked about for Dan's neuropathy workshops. So he talks about there are a lot of people in our small community looking for neuropathy treatment. We combined manual therapy with hands-on treatment with the Newbie by NeuFit that Carl had mentioned earlier. The majority of patients that underwent spinal mobilization plus the NeuFit decreased pain intensity by 50%. A lot had resolution of symptoms, which is very rewarding to see. And as you know, as a clinician who, when you're treating a lot of neuropathy patients, it is a chronic condition, something that is built up typically over years, if not multiple decades. So getting a reduction in pain that quickly, usually within 4 to 6 weeks, is clinically significant. So 38 attendees at his first 2 neuropathy workshops. They had 19 new patients, and the revenue from the session plus the cash pay. So not only were they averaging, and I talked with Dan personally, they're averaging $1,500 per plan of care, but then he's also adding in the cash pay Newbie service on top of that. So there's a range here. It's really up to you, your preference as a clinician. We want you to do what you feel is the right thing to do. And in many cases, we see people on the low end getting $2,500 to the upper end getting $8,000 per plan of care. Anything to add in there, Carl?
No, I mean, it's just, I think what's cool about it is, especially if you're running advertising for musculoskeletal issues, you can run these at the same time. So it can be another thing that goes on without confusing the market or competing with yourself. So it can really add another strong stream of revenue into the practice at the same time. And it's, I mean, I can just say that it's outperforming most of the other things that we're running at Dan's practice and some other practices as well.
So lower cost of acquisition, higher value per plan of care. Great. And then here, if you're treating neuropathy patients, I'm sure you have testimonials, but ultimately for us, this is what it's about, is helping people that have neuropathy. So this looks like Annette struggled with weakness in my legs and neuropathy in my right leg, found it difficult to walk normal, had to swing out my leg considerably to walk, which caused immense pain in my hip. Wanted to see if I could help myself before I got worse. I came to active fitness and physical therapy and did gain some strength in my hips and leg muscles. I do walk a little bit better now. I don't swing out my leg like I did. I can actually lift some. I plan to continue coming to the gym and continuing trying to strengthen it more. It does take determination, commitment, and some sore muscles with some pain, but I plan to keep moving forward. Thanks to Mike and Jennifer for showing me the way to stronger muscles. And then we want to talk about exactly how we help practices do this. So, when we think about everything that we've talked about so far in our time together here, the very first step is attracting, right? So you have to have some advertising that handles that market message media match, that's in alignment with that. And that's, social advertising would be Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google, any platform that your avatar is on. Proven landing pages. Carl showed an example of that earlier, but when you have a busy social platform like Facebook, when somebody clicks on the ad, you're going to take them outside of Facebook. There has to be a landing page that captures their information. Workshops, training on that, and email campaigns, free screen campaigns, but that's all around attraction. Once we attract them, what do we need to do next? Once that person raises their hand and they click, well, then we have to convert them over, right? And we have to meet people where we're at. So remember that those levels of awareness, the people on the right side, they're ready to go right now. The people on the left side, the lower levels of awareness, they're going to take more nurturing. So we have to have systems in place to do that. And you can see that with the CRM, email blast, two-way texting, et cetera. And then finally, once we have people that are converted over to a plan of care, what most practices that we work with, they need additional support in terms of growing now to meet the increased needs that they've generated within the market. So that's training and coaching, growth metrics, so you can do more of what works and less of what doesn't, quarterly events where you're networking with other owners so you can learn best practices and share what's working for everybody else. And then a community of like-minded owners that are continuing to serve here and grow together. The other thing, in terms of what's working, what doesn't, the main thing to take away here is we have a ton of data, right? We're working with hundreds of practices all over the US and Canada. And what we can do is essentially offer you tools that are proven to help you grow faster. So, what growth tools do we have in place that are focused on patient education? We have training around workshops, both how to do them in person and virtually. Partner workshops, which is, to me, one of the greatest growers of a practice ever, which is where somebody in the community hosts us to come in and lecture, give a seminar, a lunch and learn, et cetera. And we get new patients out of that for free. Free exam day campaigns, primarily for our past patient list and general public, click to call campaigns, report campaigns as well. If you're interested in learning the same system that Dan used, that we shared in terms of the neuropathy, that I use here to grow our private practice, what you can do is get an assessment. We'll take a look at your area and the demand for neuropathy in your area. You can click on the poll right there and our team will be in contact with you. This is really for practices that have a growth mindset. So you have a capacity to handle increased demand for your services. You want to help more people in your area, leave a bigger impact. And again, what we'll do on that call is you'll talk with one of our representatives who's going to do a customized assessment for neuropathy, the neuropathy opportunity within your specific area for your practice. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you answer the poll there. Click yes, and then we can open this up to Q&A.
Yeah, if you're treating neuropathy patients or if you're interested in it, highly recommend the neuropathy assessment. The team does a pretty cool job of looking at how, just looking at the different online traffic sources, and can show you what the opportunity looks like and what it can do for your practice. So check it out if you're interested in that.
So if you have any questions, you can type them in the Q&A. If you do not have a question right now, I have a favor to ask of you. If you can type in the chat, what was your biggest takeaway from our time together here so far? That would be great. And if you don't have a takeaway, I want to hear the biggest problem you have in attracting new patients. You can type that in the chat as well. Connie needs to work on nurturing campaigns. Great.
Makes sense.
So
Good use of your time.
S. Mikowski, hopefully I have that pronunciation right, relocating and looking at potential locations. Do you help with that? In terms of, I'm assuming you're talking about assessing a need in a future area. We do. And so I can share a little bit, pull me out of the rabbit hole, Carl, if I go too far down this. But in opening or relocating clinics, what we do is, and again, I've done this personally, is I'll work with the team here at Breakthrough to do research in a market about, the online traffic that is available. So yeah, absolutely. If you click yes, you'll walk through with the team, and they'll take a look at, where you're, and I mean, they're not going to look at 10 locations for you, but if you have one primary location that you're going to look at, they can tell you which the need is there in that area. Anything you want to add to that, Carl?
No. Connie mentioned also she's looking for patients who really need a solution and are not just kicking tires. I think that's a super common problem, Connie, and I think that, yes, working on your copy from the beginning to end, and your nurture campaigns, and the education you're giving it should provide a filter, if done right, to filter people out, the ones who would be kicking tires, and in the ones who are looking for a real solution. And one way to do that is to be more upfront in terms with what you offer, but only at a certain point. So what we found is it's usually better to create a campaign that really attracts the whole market who has neuropathy, and then use the nurturing and different techniques like the workshop to help filter the right patients into the practice, people who are really looking for a solution. And working on the offer can help as well, like having the right offer.
Connie, I don't know what ads you're running, but typically that is a symptom of free exam, free exam, free exam, free exam, that only being offered within the marketing. Again, I don't have information as to what your offer looks like or what your messaging looks like in your advertising, but typically that only generates one sort of potential patient. And like Carl said, you want to go full spectrum to the entire market, hit all the awareness levels, and through education, if think about this, if you're offering a 45-minute, 1-hour lecture, and you have 30 people sign up and 15 people show up to the event, those 15 people automatically included themselves, and they're serious about taking care of their treatment options, and they tend not to be tire kickers as much as the 15 people who didn't show up or weren't willing to consume your information. Great comment, though. Any other questions? Takeaways? Barriers in your marketing? Carl, from your perspective, what and you've talked with a ton of people that do neuropathy. What are the biggest problems that they're struggling with?
Well,
Where
Connie mentioned one of them. It's well, in terms of marketing anyway. It's really converting patients is the big thing. It's getting patients converted. And what I'd hear a lot is like kicking tires, that type of thing. And when you put the right structure in place, you're able to get the right hands raised, so you know who they are and are able to filter things out. So I think that's part of it. Another part of it is packaging. So packaging is really important. You offer a myriad of different things, and there's a lot of different solutions out there to help the patient. You might be aware of a lot of different things, but figuring out the best way to put options out there in front of the patient and allowing them to choose what's best for them, with a recommendation, is another thing that practices have a challenge with. But overall, with the practices we're working with, we're seeing really, really good results from an advertising perspective, and really solid conversion when it comes to going through this workshop process, and building the nurturing in. Any other questions out there? Or thoughts, anything to share? If not, we can wrap up.
Looks like we can go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much, Carl and Chad, for the great presentation. And thank you to everyone who attended and for joining us. This has been awesome.
Thanks.
Everybody, see ya.